Today, I want to talk about stress, anxiety. Now, stress in our life is probably a familiar foe of all of us. We all experience stress in a multitude of ways. And when we look at what Matthew has to say, do not be anxious about tomorrow. Don't be anxious, don't worry, don't stress out about tomorrow. For tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Let's not borrow trouble ahead of time. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble, meaning let's just focus on what's happening today in our lives. Let's not get caught up in what tomorrow might or might not bring, or what yesterday bring. Not a whole lot we can do with either one of those. We should plan for tomorrow, but let's not be anxious about tomorrow. Jesus offers these words as part of his larger sermon on the Sermon on the Mount. And it's not surprising to me that this is one of the topics that he addresses. Anxiety or stress is a condition that people have struggled with for a long, long time. Joan London, some of you may remember her. She was a long time ago host on Good Morning America. She said this: I grew up thinking that what happened in my life would bring me happiness or cause me stress. One of the most important lessons I've learned is that it's not what happens to us, but our reaction to what happens to us that causes stress. It's about the attitude we bring to our lives, the decisions we make. They either move us forward or become a roadblock, holding us still. And don't we know all too well that in this complex, uncertain, always changing, fast-moving world, it's easy to lose sight of our ability to make choices that affect how we respond to pressures in life. To be clear, stress is our body's reaction to harmful situations or stressors. When we find ourselves stressed, our bodies respond. The heart begins to race, pounding as if it's bursting out of our chests. The heart beats faster to pump more blood more quickly through the body. Our breathing grows faster, increasing our oxygen and getting that oxygen to our muscles. The muscles tense. Blood pressures rise. We are on top alert, and our hearing, eyesight, smell, and touch can increase in that moment. All of this takes place nearly instantaneously. These hormonal and physiological changes or responses are designed to help us to fight the threat or flee to safety. It's known as the fight or flight response. Unfortunately, the body can overreact to stressors that aren't life-threatening, such as traffic, or a slow person in the line ahead of us and we're in a hurry. Pressure at work, family problems. We might react like these are life-threatening stressors by lashing out, getting physical, attacking verbally, overreacting. But it isn't the moment of a rational thinking. It's a fight or flight response. We need to remind ourselves that yes, we can control ourselves, think rationally. And the difficulty is in knowing this is the moment. The difficulty is in knowing this in that moment and knowing what to do. Think of the many stressors that we face in life. Our jobs can be stressful. Or not having a job can be stressful. A friendship is dissolving. A marriage is on the rocks. There's stress in paying the bills every month and paying them on time. inflation, violence, crime, politics, war, racial divide, the loss of a beloved family member. These are all sources of stress. And it's amazing what prolonged stress can do to our bodies. When we don't address the stress and we let it go on, it wreaks havoc on us. It affects our immune system, making us more prone or susceptible to sickness. It speeds up the aging process. Just think about any of our presidents who went in for their first term, whether they served 4 years or 8 years. They look incredibly different when they go in and when they come out. It's a stressful job. Causes headaches and muscle tension, soreness and fatigue, poor sleep, weight gain, weight loss, high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, obesity, and diabetes. And it can lead to mental health problems such as depression and anxiety. We're more easily frustrated, agitated, and moody. We feel overwhelmed. We can't relax or quiet the mind. Our self-esteem lowers. We feel lonely, worthless, and depressed. Wow. That's a lot that stress puts on us. And that's a lot that we can see happen to us if we don't address the stress over a period of time. Now, our bodies are designed to handle small doses of stress, but we're not equipped to handle long-term chronic stress without severe consequence. Many stress over finances. We never seem to have enough. And when we do have enough, an expensive emergency hits and we're back to feeling like we never have enough. Or maybe materialism has gotten away from us and we're trying to maintain a certain lifestyle that we can't. Materialism itself can lead to stress because when we seek out the world's good or goods, we have fallen for what Mark calls the deceitfulness of wealth. And this is a lie that we need to stand guard against vigilantly. The lie that material things, more clothes, more cars, more toys, relieve stress and lead to happiness, contentment, and joy. They do not. Some stress over finances because they don't trust God to provide the basic necessities of life. But Jesus told us, therefore I tell you, do not be anxious in your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to the span of your life? I picture Jesus saying those words just like that, leaning in, letting the people know this is important, listen closely. And a finger, not a pointing finger, a crooked finger. Listen to me. Which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to your life? We must never forget that God is our ultimate provider. If we are His, we need not fear that He'll abandon us. He won't. Occasionally I preach about finances or financially tithing to the church. And I do this for one main reason. It may not be the reason you think. It has to do with our spiritual growth and deepening maturity in our relationship with God through Christ. It has to do with seeing our trust and faith in God grow. From day one of our marriage, Brenda and I committed to tithing or giving 10% of our income back to the church. And we've been really faithful in doing so. I wouldn't say we're 100% over the course of 18 years. We've been really faithful in making all our attempts to meet that commitment. Even when we could have given or could have kept back a couple of thousands of dollars for bills or that long-awaited vacation that just never comes around, we decided to give back to God instead. And our faith in God to provide for us, no matter what, has only increased over the years. Sometimes we find stress in the hardships and the trials that lie ahead of us. An interview for a new job, a deadline you might not meet, a scary doctor's appointment, how to care for an aging mom or dad. In our New Testament, the book of James, or the letter of James, reminds us, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. But when we face these hardships, we can either give into the stress or we can see it as a means by which God can strengthen our faith and mold our character. Well, there's one other stressor that I want to talk about. We're talking about the stress of finances, the stress of hardships and trials that lie ahead of us. And the other stressor I want to talk about is the stress of perfectionism. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I still believe I can do it better. It can be better. I can rework it one more time. Just give me a little more time. But over the years, I realized that I was placing undue stress on myself by trying to get it right. Absolutely, perfectly right every time. I'm reminded of the singer, Donny Osmond. The Osmonds, and especially Donny and Marie, were famous back in the day, but to some generations still are. Donny was a child star, a teen idol, hosted weekly variety shows. But in the early 90s, when he was starring in the live stage production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which is a musical from our Old Testament telling the story of Joseph being sold into slavery by his brothers, there came a time when he couldn't go on stage. He couldn't face the audience, the crowd of people. He said, I was having what I thought was a nervous breakdown. I froze one night before I was to go on stage. I was shaking. I was nervous. I thought the walls were caving in on me. And Osmond described these anxiety attacks by saying, you feel like you're in a burning building and you can't get out. And if someone were to ask you at that point if they could help you, you'd rather actually be in the burning building and die. It's that bad. But what caused him to have those anxiety attacks? Perfectionism. Osmond said you try to be perfect all the time, but you can never attain that. He was later diagnosed with social phobia, a common anxiety disorder that results from a fear of being ridiculed. And while anyone can develop such an order or disorder, innate perfectionism and the need to please everyone made Osmond especially vulnerable. And he was no longer able to do what he had been called to do, to sing and to perform in front of others. So what do we do to reground ourselves and to be the ones making the decisions about stress in our lives? How do we overcome these challenges? Well, certainly seeing a doctor is important. Medical advancements have made tremendous strides in diagnosing and treating anxiety. From a spiritual perspective, there's prayer. I can't emphasize the importance of prayer in our lives enough. I've said this before, and it merits saying again, prayer doesn't need to be formal or fancy. And there aren't special, unique prayer words that you have to use, else it doesn't count. Not at all. Prayer is talking to Jesus, telling him what's on your mind. Tell him about the stress you're feeling. Pass any decisions that you're trying to make over to him and see how he will bless you. Let him be in charge. Philippians reminds us, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So there's prayer. Prayer helps ground us. But there's also belief. Believing in how Jesus can make a difference in our lives. Jesus said, let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. Plain and simple. Let's believe in God. Let's see our faith grow and deepen, and our trust in God grow as well. Let's believe that Jesus can help us in any and all parts of our lives. And again, let our faith grow in that belief. So we have prayer and belief. And then there's rest. John Lubbock wrote, rest is not idleness, and to lie sometimes on the grass under the trees on a summer's day, listening to the murmur of water or watching the clouds float across the sky, is by no means a waste of time. We need to honor time to ourselves. So there's prayer, there's belief, there's rest. There's one last thing that I want to share, and this comes from a pearl of wisdom that David Mamet gives us. He said, we must have a pie. Stress cannot exist in the presence of a pie. Needless to say, I can get behind those pearls of wisdom right there. It's okay to start with dessert. The main course will still be there. We have prayer, rest, believing, and pie. Because after all, stress is desserts spelled backwards. God bless you. As we ready ourselves now for our offering, I want to give thanks to you for the ways that you give, that help continue, perpetuate, and launch new ministries and missions within our church and community and beyond. Thank you.